Hi folks, I'm Richard Friedman and welcome to my Trump cartoon countdown of the week, December 3rd, 2019. What we're going to do as always is go on Twitter, based upon Twitter impressions. I pick out the top impressions of the week, cartoon most appearing to be popular, and we just do our cartoon countdown until we get to that. So I'm going to start off here with introduce you to the characters. Here's Rudy Giuliani. Here's President Trump. Rudy, okay, and read it to you. Trump tries to distance himself from his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani's efforts related to Ukraine. In radio interview with Bill O'Reilly. First, what Trump actually said, and second, what Trump did not say, but probably wished he did or could have thought of saying, in my interpretation, in my theme of thought here, scheme of thought. So let's have a go at it, okay? Here's President Trump. And here he goes. I did not direct Rudy Giuliani to go to Ukraine to dig up dirt on political rivals, and I have no idea what he was doing there. Rudy has other clients other than me and has done a lot of work in Ukraine over the years. So what President Trump is doing here basically is kind of spreading Mr. Giuliani over Ukraine, you know, like dusting the powder over a cake, you know, just spreading it out all over Ukraine to take it away from himself, kind of like. And here's number 2. We go here. Okay, and he's saying, here's President Trump. Number 2. President Trump now reflecting what he did not say. He did not say this, but I'm kind of going on the theme of his thinking, okay? Rudy was a professor of bribery and corruption law at Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine. Kiev is the capital of Ukraine, okay? And now here he is, how he would embellish this, or how it would go, would be like this. Number 3, there's Rudy as a professor in the classroom, starting the first day of classes, introducing the course and the syllabus and the course outline here. Okay, here's Rudy. Okay, Professor Rudy Giuliani, bribery and corruption law 101. Textbook requirements, none. No textbooks, no, well, let's go on here. There will be no tests, no final exams. The only requirement is a minimum 10 typed written page research paper on Ukrainian activities of Joe Biden and son. Good luck. So I guess you get extra credit the more you mention the company that Mr. Biden's son was affiliated with and worked for, or he didn't work for, he was on the board, let's say, and he didn't have much background in gas, since it was a gas company. He didn't have much background in that. So the hypothesis here is basically that, you know, that there was something wrong going on, but nobody's ever proven that. So again, this would be moving in that direction there to use his professorship at this university in Kiev to get some information from his students, and that's how that went. So, taking a look at it, here's Rudy. Okay. And there was President Trump passing the burden, or whatever you want to call it, on to Giuliani for his individual efforts or with his other clients that he might have had, hypothetically, a university position there. Okay. Now, this is an interesting cartoon that Chris Matthews recently celebrated his 20th year of Hardball. So I thought that I would do something like to commemorate it, and basically to attribute to Chris Matthews in a way, setting up an interview with President Trump, where he could, watching it frequently that I do, I'm a little accustomed to his humor, and I figured I'd capture that humor of his and put it in a cartoon in the context of a subject that was relevant and going on right now. So here is Hardball host Chris Matthews. Okay, there's Chris. Okay, and he goes, Hardball host Chris Matthews gets tribute cartoon interview with President Trump November 29, 2019 for his 20-year anniversary. Okay? Now, here's a logical question. A real logical question, had this interview occurred, what Chris Matthews might well have asked the president. So, here it is. Okay, Mr. President, how would you address the allegation that you are trying to scapegoat your personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, given you said that Mr. Giuliani was not directed by you to dig up dirt on political rivals, meaning Joe Biden's son, and Mr. Giuliani is invoking attorney-client privilege to avoid congressional testimony about his Ukraine activities, okay? Okay, so there's a conflict there. Giuliani is invoking this client privilege, so he's obviously tied in with Mr. Trump, and they're asking to question him about his activities in Ukraine, and he's using client privilege. So that he's tying himself to President Trump on the basis of defending himself against giving testimony in the impeachment inquiry. So you can't have it both ways here. Either he's a client or he's not a client. So President Trump is saying he's not my client, and Rudy is reaching out like a man in the quicksand, looking out. There's President Trump. Here I am. I'm your man. I'm your attorney. I'm with you. And this is what's going on in this cartoon here, you see? So that was the question. Now, here comes President Trump's, again, based upon what President Trump has said, this would be a hypothetical response, and would be appropriate from what the President has said thus far about the matter. I would say Mr. Giuliani was acting under the orders of another client or entity, some other entity could mean anything, right? So I took that to another dimension in a way, and I had Chris, using Chris Matthews' imagination and his wit, and I injected it here into this cartoon, and I say, and here's Chris Matthews. Boy, this is sounding like the Stepford Wives. Maybe Mr. Giuliani should invoke a robot defense. In other words, in the Stepford Wives, these were those of you who are old enough to remember the original Stepford Wives, these were wives who were taken and then they were substituted with robots to make for creating a man's world where women were subservient. They said, yes, yes, my darling, to everything. And that was the kind of utopia that for a man's utopia in those days, that's what they thought it would be in that context in the movie. So this would be, in a way, how Giuliani could defend himself, saying, "Well, I'm a robot. You know." So it's a little it's a little going off the deep end, but it's interesting to make that analogy because, again, President Trump is moving Giuliani away, and Giuliani is trying to reach out again, as I said before, and the only logical conclusion in the middle way is to say, well, it's some other entity then. Because if he's his client and you want to have it both ways, you say, well, okay, have it both ways then. Then he's working for, so his mind has been hijacked by some other entity, or whatever you want to look at it. So it was popular, it got a lot of impressions, and I thought it was, I did it mainly as a tribute to Chris Matthews for 20 years, and I know we would have liked to have gotten an interview with President Trump, so I kind of masterminded an interview that I thought would be humorous and reflective, okay? So now, here's an interesting thing, okay? Here, I introduced you to characters. First, here's Mick Mulvaney, and here's our Secretary of State, Pompeo, and here's Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry. By the way, Secretary, one of the departments that Rick Perry was pledging to abolish was the Department of Energy when he was running, but he forgot to mention that, and he kind of got caught up in that. So now he's the head. He's not going to be head for long. He is resigning or whatever. So it's interesting. Anyway, that's a little footnote. Okay, so again, so let's have a go at this. This is happening at a hearing. Okay, this is all three of them at a hearing. And here is Secretary Pompeo making a statement, and he's thinking about a hearing. He's visualizing. Okay, so let's have a go at it. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo responds when asked about a series of tweets Trump had sent in which the president said he would love to have Pompeo and other officials, including departing Energy Secretary Rick Perry, Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, testify about the phony impeachment hoax. So President Trump is basically, this is the deal here is that President Trump tweeted that he'd like to see these guys up there because what inevitably would happen is they'd have to incriminate themselves. If they to incriminate the president, they would automatically have to incriminate themselves. So if they incriminated themselves, well, it would be a kamikaze mission in a way. So he loved to see that, you know. So anyway, what he said and afterthoughts. Given Mike Pompeo has signaled that he plans to invoke executive privilege. Yes, Secretary Pompeo has stated that he plans to invoke executive privilege to avoid disclosure of statements or documents relevant to impeachment. So here we have below Pompeo on when he would testify and his afterthoughts. And this is a direct quote from Secretary Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, a direct quote. This is exactly what he said. Okay. Okay. when the time is right, all good things happen when the time is right. Well, so that could be interpreted in a million ways. So I kind of put in the right time and made a scenario here in my cartoon that they're all testifying together and they're at the impeachment hearing. And all of a sudden, there's this aroma into the room there, smelling something that smells delicious. And I kind of made it a scenario, again, a symbolic scenario here. Okay, so here is Secretary Pompeo in the middle here, and what he's doing, there's a pizza that's cooking. You see this pizza here? It's a pepperoni pizza with Italian sausage cooking here, and the aroma is going all over the place, you see? So it's sent by President Trump as basically a impeachment, executive privilege pizza. In reward for taking executive privilege, really, I think President Trump, I think these people would not want to incriminate themselves, and they would fall in line under executive privilege, because why would they ever incriminate themselves? Because either way, they would. And then once they incriminate themselves, then they're fallen people, basically, because then they're going to be subject to prosecution and plea bargaining, and then it's out of Trump world, and they seem to like it there. So I don't think they want to leave Trump world. So that's basically what the story is. So what's happening here? Then Secretary Pompeo says, "Mick, do you smell delicious pepperoni and Italian sausage pizza?" See, there it is. There's the pizza. There, it's right over there. You see? Okay. All right. And then Mick says, "It's your executive privilege pizza from President Trump." Executive privilege pizza from President Trump. Meaning, good going, guys, and taking that executive privilege. There's your executive privilege pizza. Enjoy. And so what I did here is that Rick Perry, who forgot that about the Department of Energy that he wanted to eliminate when he was running for president, also here forgot about the plea that they were going to do, the executive privilege plea. So he didn't relate the idea that this was from President Trump, an executive privilege pizza from President Trump. Secretary Perry thought it was a pizza company like Domino's, Papa John's, and now we have executive privilege pizza, that kind of thing. So what happens here is Rick Perry then thinks to himself these thoughts here. Okay, wish there was an executive privilege pizza place back in Texas. Again, like Papa John's, Domino's, or something like that. So he missed the point, and he just forgot a little bit. So that's a fabricated, that's a fictional, obviously fictional tale, but I put it in just as a kind of a humorous way to present the dilemma of these people testifying what it would be, and to create a little humor, not to denigrate Rick Perry, or Secretary as he is now, Secretary of Energy Rick Perry, but to make it a little humorous and to give you folks a little understanding of what's going on, and that's about it on that one. Now, this is a cartoon that I just did today, actually, hearing about President Trump coming back from Afghanistan, visiting the troops and the president of Afghanistan there, and making some, let's say, assumptions that haven't been confirmed, okay? That have not been confirmed or supported at this point by the principles involved in those assumptions. So basically, President Trump, he flew back and he stopped off at Mar-a-Lago, and he kind of decided that there for a couple hours, you know, and taking the beautiful scenery in, and decided to go out and play some golf at the President's Country Club in that area of West Palm Beach, the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. So I kind of threw in what he said, and basically, and just create a little joke, and you take it from there, okay? It could go, you could look at it in many ways, this cartoon, and so I'm going to leave it up to you to interpret. I'm just going to give you the options here on this one, okay? So let's have a go at it. Here they are. Here's Lindsey Graham in the golf cart with the golf clubs. There he is, playing golf with President Trump. I mean, this is how it's going to go. It's not going to go this way, but this is how to symbolize this. The golf clubs, there's Lindsey Graham, and here's President Trump on his golf course in West Palm Beach, okay? All right, there goes the golf ball. There's the palm trees. There are the birds. Okay, let's have a go at it. Okay, Trump returns to Mar-a-Lago after Thanksgiving with the troops in Afghanistan and meeting with Afghan president. Then hours later, heads to Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. On the course, the president's thoughts, you know, what he's thinking, possible thoughts about his announcement to follow, his announcement to follow to the press, to the American people, that came as a surprise to the Afghan government. What he did say came as a surprise to the Afghan government, who said neither the Taliban nor the government of Afghan President Ashraf Ghani indicated a ceasefire was near. So President Trump basically said that the Taliban was anxious, wanted to do a deal, and that they are willing to go for a ceasefire, and they wanted a ceasefire. And none of those statements were backed up except by what Mr. Trump said. And so I took that from there. And the imagined response from golfing partner, Senator Lindsey Graham. So here's President Trump. He's on the golf course. He just took a shot. There goes the golf ball. There's the palm trees, birds. And he's thinking to himself, here he is. And he's thinking to himself, I'm going to make those Democrat witch hunters of that impeachment inquiry know that if I was not president, the Taliban would never want a deal or ceasefire. And my golfing partner, Senator Lindsey Graham, would agree. So what happened was that President Trump imagined Lindsey Graham, because Lindsey Graham has golfed with the president before, and they have a very good friendship, and Lindsey Graham has been very supportive of President Trump in these days. So here's Lindsey Graham making his response. Mr. President, I'm going to make a Senate motion that the Taliban be permitted to testify at your Senate trial. Okay, Taliban, President Trump had originally, a few months ago, planned a meeting with the Taliban at Camp David with the president of Afghanistan, 2 separate meetings. And so this kind of fell in line with that kind of thinking of having the Taliban get in on the Washington scene here. So the idea in this cartoon was basically to have Lindsay going along with the president and believing that that was true, and decided that the Taliban could support President Trump's hypothesis here that without the president there would never be such an opportunity for the United States to make peace with the Taliban, and they would be willing, they're very anxious to do a peace deal. Okay, and a ceasefire. So another way of interpreting this, looking at it the second time around, another way of interpreting would be to say, well, Lindsay is going to get the president to tell the truth, or whether it's true and false. He bring in the Taliban say, well, we don't know nothing about this, and then, well, so I would go with the Lindsey Graham, because Lindsey Graham is very changeable. Of course, you saw him smashing his radio when the president gave out his phone number and all that business, and all what the things he said about President Trump were not good. I mean, they were not. They're not. Well, you know the story of that one. So what I'm saying here is that Lindsey Graham is so changeable that anything is possible. So it's possible that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Lindsey Graham meant to say, well, we'll see if you're telling the truth, and we'll bring them the Taliban to testify as to what the story was in Afghanistan, whether it was actually said or wasn't said. So there are two ways of looking at it, and that brings me to my second point that I want to get to closing about, is that I think we passed the point here of saying to things are going to get better. We got an America that's we got faith, and I think that's always good to have faith. Very important to have faith, but I believe now, from the events of last week, that we have to take it a step further in a way of making our thoughts and our positions known to our representatives in Congress by writing them or emailing them or something like that. Because without that, we can no longer make the assumption that people are going to do the right thing, because everything is so politicized. You could see what's happening here with the way things are going, that you can no longer make the assumption that America is in the hands of people who are going to do what's 100% best for America. Sad but true. So you as an American citizen or as an American living here or whatever, you have to investigate and get the facts and let the people who represent you know where you stand. Otherwise, we could go down the tubes in terms of our institutions and everything like that. And this is the way the Roman Empire went. I mean, they had the Senate and they had all these things and all these the beginnings of an institution, of an empire, and we're going to fall. It's possible that we could fall on the same track as the Roman Empire did in a different way, of course. We won't have barbarians invading us because we have nuclear weapons, but in many other ways we will, our society will cave in unless we take action to let these people who represent us know about this. And when I say get the facts, I don't mean digging into the history of either Rudy Giuliani or President Trump or anybody else. We have to judge it on what's happened here in these situations, and not to say, well, as I say, go into the past. Rudy Giuliani, sure, he was a great mayor at the time with 9/11 and everything, but all that is past and gone. We have to look at the things Rudy Giuliani is doing now and to see what his motivations were, and we have to think about him in the present. And same thing with President Trump, the things he did in the past, with all these, on the bus and all that business. We have to have the strength, and that's what it takes, strength, to put that aside, throw all that away, and look and focus on what happened here. and ask ourselves, is this the kind of America that is this the kind of presidency, let's put it that way, that we want, where we have somebody who can, all presidents do things that many times turn out to be bad decisions that work against America. And you can't hold anybody for making a bad decision, but those bad decisions were based on good intentions for America, even if they turned out bad. So if you have a situation where somebody's not even considering America and thinking of their own self-interest, and if you make that determination, then you're going to open the floodgates for future presidents to come in and roughly do the same thing. You know, everybody's going back to the founding fathers and all that. I like to do that in my drawings, true. But you have to think of today, and you can't basically get caught into thinking in terms of, well, this is the president, and this is the royal presidency, or we are dealing. Everybody in this country is a citizen, a citizen, and that includes the president. And we're not in a society where we have basically royalty or people above the law. You know, it's years ago they had that many years ago, and that's what we fought the revolution for. And there you go. I don't want to go stark, but that's the truth. So anyway, I think we have to focus in on the here and now, and really pay attention to what's going on, and make our thoughts known to our representatives in Congress. Otherwise, they're gonna just do what they think is politically right, especially, unfortunately, the Republicans, as it seems now, because that's the way it looks to me. Anyway, so I want to just show you a couple of things. I always like to show you here my books that I wrote. These are political cartoon books, and there we go. Yeah, you see? And this book is a little outdated in a way, but it's not, because it shows the election. It shows what went on in the election of 2016, and it goes right up to 2018. And I always like to flip through unrehearsed, just flip out things and just go back here. Like, see, I did here is Hillary Clinton. One, and okay, this is what I call, this one chapter called "The Baking of President Trump's Victory," the baking of what happened here, and some the Republican candidates. Remember Huckabee? Remember? Then we had that incident here, if you remember. Well, anyway, we won't go into that. And here is Kasich, good man. He never got too far in the presidential race, but okay. Eating a pancake. President Trump made fun of him, the way he ate his pancakes, so I did a cartoon about that. And here's Ben Carson, to a sin he confessed about, left out of his book. Here's President Bush's mother. That was, she was very, in helping Jeb, she was very, very devoted mother in the way she tried to help Jeb. And so here's with her broom threatening in case that anybody spoke against her son. And okay. Okay, this was Jeb Bush posted a video featuring his mother endorsing his campaign, January 19th, 2016. Okay, then I had Jeb Bush as the Energizer Bunny from what, and then Ted Cruz did one on Ted Cruz, where he thrown under the bus. Sarah Palin threw him under the bus, and he's saying, "Oh wait," and he says, I'm still a very big fan, even with a broken leg." You know, yeah. It's Ted Cruz, and here's President Bush. He did one about him, talking about his brother. Okay. So, okay. Here's Giuliani saying, "I could handle being mayor of the world." Here's Dick Cheney, and he's saying here, here's Dick Cheney with his gun, and he's saying, "My brother kept us safe from his Vice President Cheney here." You know, he kept us safe. My brother, President Bush, kept us safe from Vice President Cheney. You know, yeah. So it's a lot of interesting things, and I use these books when I'm doing a cartoon a lot of times to just to reflect on the past and to get a perspective back. You know, it's like a time machine. You can go in there and look at it, and that's that one. And the second, the most recent one, again, this is to 2019, the greatest 2019 book of political cartoons on issues of Donald J. Trump presidency. This focuses on the 2019 presidency of President Donald J. Trump, all the incidents and all the things that occurred, and it's going to end December 31st. It went to January, so this book here went from January of 2019 to June of 2019. So that was 6 months, because there's so many things happening. Could write an encyclopedia. So I just broke it down to 6 months books, and this was the first edition. Okay, and this went from January to June. So this goes a half a year, from January 2019 to June 2019, and from June to January 2020. Then another book is coming out in January with all the cartoons you saw today. So, and are on Twitter at my site on Twitter, Bronx Cartoonist, at RJF Cartoons. You can see them all there. You don't even have to buy the book. You can go to Twitter. But it's nice. It's a good conversation piece to have around and look and research things. But if you want just to laugh, just go to Twitter and look it up at Bronx Cartoonist at RJF Cartoons and have a good time with that. So, okay, here's an interesting one. You see, I just browsed through unrehearsed, thinking, you know, it's better this way that you see, you know, just whatever pops up, you know, potluck, you know, so book luck. Anyway, this is I created a New York Times. If Trump was basically, had the New York Times, or knew somebody who was in control of the New York Times, you know, he had the Inquirer, so if that person ever took control of the New York Times, who ran the Inquirer, this is a headline you'd see. You see? And his dream about it, you see. The New York Times, a David Becker publication. Trump saves U.S. from nuclear apocalypse as North Korea denuclearizes 100%. You know, that'd be a great headline. Okay. Okay, I try to, here's Trump's attorney, Don McGahn. He got a little angry at him. "You lied, you liar," when he began testifying. So he drew a dartboard, throwing a dart at him from his office, from the Oval Office. There's lots of things here. Here's President Trump with the head of Israel, Netanyahu. Anyway, I don't want to get into too much of this, but it's here's with the Queen here. Trump at a very formal stay in Great Britain. See, so I'm really putting history into a cartoon, and if you just want the old stuff is not on Twitter, so that's something you'd have to you'd have to buy. You could get it through the digital also, as well as a paperback from Amazon. And the way to do that is to just go to my profile page on Twitter, cartoon RJF at cartoon, Bronx Cartoonist at RJF Cartoons. Bronx Cartoonist at RJF Cartoons, and you'll get to that Twitter page, and the link is there for you to be able to order these 2 books, and the 3rd book should be there in January. So I want to thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope to see you again. And you folks take care, and again, get involved. I don't say get involved where you have to go out and carry this and that and all kinds of baby pictures and whatnot. I ain't saying that. I'm saying just go ahead and make your thoughts known to your representatives, because you can no longer assume that your people who are elected are going to do what's right for America. You have to do what's right for America. And if you do that, then they know that you're thinking. Because otherwise, forget it. It's just going to go down. It's just going to go down. And we're really at a point now where we have to let our representatives know where we stand. We have to. And I want to thank you again for watching this video, and I'll see you again. And thank you very much. Till next time, bye.